man.
Oh,
There
the
we
goose.
go. I think I got it right this time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For the Minions, the weekly show where we talk about the Paragon remakes and Ethereal. This week, of course, we're going to be talking about the Overprime news with their name change, getting the rights to Paragon and the logo. And we're going to also talk about their gameplay trailer, and then we'll head in and talk about some a little Ethereal update, a new skin for my girl Malaya, and then Predecessor has released that they're going to have Asian servers on early access. They didn't have Asian servers for their closed beta test, but I'm your host, the Mangoose. Joining me, as always, is Jelly Knees and the Viking Jedi, but we also have a special guest specifically for the Overprime segment. It's Sarajog. How you doing, Sarajog?
Woo!
I'm good. Happy that there's news that I actually... how should I say that? Happy that there's news from Overprime to talk about.
Sarajog asked me a long time ago, hey man, when there's big news for Overprime, can I come on the show? So here he is. And of course we got Jelly Knees with us. How you doing, Jelly?
Fantastic, Mangoose. Happy to be here. I was super excited for this announcement, and so I think it's going to be super fun to talk about for sure.
And unfortunately, we also have the Viking Jedi. How you doing, Viking?
Big true, big true.
I'm doing super good. I'm also amped to go over all this stuff, actually. I mean, the Overprime news is probably the biggest of it, but Predecessor putting out some good info, and we still have to talk about, the Predecessor pay to access early access. So that'll be interesting to see how the community responds to that. But yeah, having Sarajog back is also really exciting. I can't wait to get his insights on all this stuff.
He knows more than us, that's for sure. So let's
Yep.
get right on into the Overprime portion of this. Don't want to waste Sarajog's time too much. So Overprime, big news, of course, being, and I thought that they had bought the rights to the old Paragon name and the logo. Turns out they just asked for them and got them, I guess. I'm sure it has a lot to do with Netmarble and Epic. There's probably a little bit of leverage there, but apparently they didn't even have to pay for the rights. They just now have the rights to Paragon, so they've renamed it to Paragon the Overprime. And Sarajog, what can you tell us about this? What do you think this is going to mean for the game going forward?
Well, for personal, I don't care about the rename, but marketing-wise, it's obviously very important because it basically proves that Epic sees Overprime as Paragon's equal.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of people used to treat Overprime like a virus or whatever with sketchy download and there were
100%.
rumors about the maps being data mined and what else. I don't remember, and I just know a lot of people said Overprime was bad and probably you should not touch it because it looked sketchy, which I get. But basically proves now that it's a real thing and is even approved by Epic in that sense. So I think it's amazing, and it's bringing like a lot of publicity to the game that it just doesn't have, because people don't even know about the game still to this day. There's a lot of people that don't know the remakes exist in general.
Right.
I think the
Sarajog's
big thing that
mic
you
is
touched
louder
on-
than... Okay, I'll fix that, Pizza Face. Thank you.
Yeah, Mangoose. Goodness gracious. I think the big thing you touched on there, though, is that you don't care about the name change. And for the most part, I don't see Overprime fans caring about the name change at all. If anything, it should be a win for Overprime fans.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to scare other people away necessarily. If they weren't going to play Overprime, they're not going to play Overprime still.
Mm-hmm.
But if maybe this did change their mind, that's already huge, right? That's an added boost of players. And I've already seen, even in the Overprime Discord, there are people that have come in saying, like, I was searching for Paragon and I found this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. And it's already in 3 days, they're already getting benefit from the name change. And I think that's absolutely huge.
That took me by surprise. How many people have come in? So I think this is a boon for all of the Paragon remakes, really, because
I agree.
when they find out about Overprime, they're going to find out about the others. And there's a lot of people joining the Overprime Discord server that had no idea any of this was going on, and they do now because of this name change, and it's pretty crazy. What do you think, Jedi?
Yeah, I mean, I echo the same points, to be honest. It's I think the marketing aspect of it is going to be the biggest, especially for pushing towards, once they actually go to early access. I do think it puts a bit of pressure on, Predecessor team and Fault to, up their advertising or their own social media pressure, because this is free for Overprime now. At this point, it's just like everything. The name changes back for the characters. The name change for Overprime being now the remake, I guess, if you want to call it that, from Epic. It puts a lot of pressure on the other studios to really kind of match that kind of momentum. I think it's still possible. I think with Jelly's point that you're not going to necessarily hard convince a Predecessor fan to go over to Overprime just because of the name change, but other people who hadn't been paying attention at all, that were those guys' friends, might be like, oh, I'm going to be playing, Overprime. And I don't know. I think it's good all the way. It's definitely not bad, despite some really weird comments that I saw on Twitter. Like, there was some very aggressive people.
We'll
about
talk
it.
about that later on. Yeah.
I think another big thing is this gives Overprime, and all of them, like Mangoose was saying, it does benefit all of them to a certain extent. But this gives Overprime access to the much grander player base than any of these games have had access to thus far. Right? I was just looking it up, and as of July 2017, Paragon announced they had 7.3 million registered players. Right? And sure, there's duplicate accounts in that, but even if you just round that down to 700 to 7 million, these games barely scratch probably 100 to 200,000 people. Right? If any of those people, if any of that 7 million get nostalgic and they look up Paragon, now they're immediately going to be faced with something new that's playable or is going to be playable very soon. And that gives them, we've talked about in the past, Mangoose, about the Paragon pond, right? That they're fishing out of the Paragon pond. This just absolutely gave them way better tools to fish out of that pond. And it's going to be fantastic to see.
Which will help them transition out of that pond into the ocean at large. The other thing too, I looked up the search engine optimization comparison for Paragon, Predecessor, Overprime, and Fault, and it is wild how much more searched for Paragon is. And a lot of times it's not even for the video game Paragon, it's just the word Paragon. But who cares? That doesn't matter. People are searching for the word Paragon, and they're going to find this game because of that. A lot of it's for Diablo. There's a Paragon build or some shit like that, but
I would have to imagine, and maybe Sarajog could add in some insight too, this is a bigger value for the Western market and capturing more of that, I think, than it necessarily. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't hurt the Eastern market, but I definitely think it's a bigger benefit to getting more eyes on it that are, here on the West.
I'm not sure, but I think for the Chinese part of the Asian market, it's also really important to name Paragon. So it's not only the Western that are focused more on the name. I'm not 100% sure. I would need to ask Lucky, like one of the content mods that's from Chinese. But I think he mentioned something in that direction once. So in general, it will be everywhere on the world, I guess, where it's more searched.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
have you noticed a big uptick in what, like, obviously you're very much involved in in like the forums and all that stuff. Are you seeing like a big influx of players coming in that are talking about the game since the announcement?
I mean, on the Discord, there are a lot of new people that joined. When you go on the Overprime Discord, there's a lot of people with like that. I'm new here, say hi. There's that little. What is that?
Just a like welcome
some leaf
message
thingy that says that people are new, so you recognize new people. And since the name change, I've seen a lot more of those new people coming in and asking stuff.
That's so cool.
And then along with this announcement of the name change came a new and an updated gameplay trailer, which was much cleaner than the demo versions of the game that we've seen so far. And Sarajog, what do you got to say about this gameplay trailer? Because I imagine that's more the meat and potatoes of what we actually care about. The name change is cool. It's going to help with search engine optimization, but we care about the goddamn game, and this is more the game than anything. So, anything that you wanted to point out there, Sarajog, with that gameplay trailer?
I mean, first of all, I'm not sure if I got the list correct, but we saw Wraith, Howitzer, Aurora, and Seraph, which weren't in the closed beta. I'm not sure if I missed any of the new heroes, but I think the other heroes, or Decker wasn't in the closed beta either.
And Faye.
Okay, like I said, I'm not sure if I missed anyone, but
we got you though. We got your back.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. So like, there's already 5 new heroes that we know will come out for the early access. So I really like that, and the whole thing, it just looks very clean and nice, as you already mentioned. One thing I don't like really is the announcer. He's weird, kinda. Like,
He seems a little underwhelming.
Little flat.
yeah, yeah, we got a pentakill. Nice, good job. That's how it felt when I watched it for the
We had this-
pentakill part. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, sure.
We had the same
Also-
impression.
The texts he says are extremely long. An ally has slain an enemy.
Hmm.
If you kill someone, he actually says, you killed an enemy or something. I believe it's a different text, which is nice, but I think an ally has slain an enemy is just way too long as a voice line. Because if there's multiple things happening, you're just gonna be hearing it for the next minute while he's saying sentences.
Yeah, too much sound clutter. I didn't really notice that, but
Also, like, the pop-up that shows when you kill someone is ally has defeated an enemy, but he's saying an ally has slain an enemy. So I think it's weird to like make different visual text than what he's saying when it's still pretty much the same.
the visuals were good though. They were improved and updated.
Yeah.
Like the kill feed
I
in the middle of your screen, really cool.
I like that it's not like filling your screen anymore. I remember from the beta sometimes you saw more numbers and stuff than actual gameplay. So that's definitely an improvement there. And what else did I have on my notes? Minions. I'm
Yep.
not 100% sure, but they changed the minions back to to Paragon minions.
Yep.
Instead of their own minions
Oh,
that
they
actually
did.
created.
The Teons, they're gone. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't really know why, because we asked and they can use both. So
Huh.
I don't know why they decided to not use them anymore.
Ranger said in Discord that the new ones that they made that have now been replaced by the original Paragon minions, he said those minions have gone to the jungle. But if you look in this gameplay footage, it's Paragon minions in the jungle as well. So I don't know if there's plans to put the Teons in the jungle going forward, or if that was his way of saying that they went out to pasture, that your dog isn't dead. He's going to farm somewhere. These minions are in the jungle now.
They had custom jungle camps mostly anyway for this. Actually, I guess I should say specifically for the buffs. The little nothing camps were Paragon minions. So I guess making those Teons wouldn't be that big a deal, but I thought they were going to make those more unique as well, rather than just the generic minion size by itself.
Right. Another thing I noticed was Form of Grubbish, I think it used to be called. The transformation card that would turn you into the little river lane bug. It now turns you into a fish. But that is now in the game, which is pretty cool to see. You see Kalari get turned into a fish at one point in time. When
I didn't
Kalari's
know
trying
what
to
that
kill.
was. I was
Yeah,
like, what the
item.
fuck? Why is there a fish there? I did not know. I was so confused. So I was
Kalari's
like,
new
okay,
ability,
it's
she turns
gotta-
into a fish. She's
Yeah,
not
I was
visible.
like, I was like, okay, this must be something that I'm just dumb and don't know about. But yeah, no. To me, one of the coolest things to see was Aurora. Because we talked about her last week, right? As somebody that we thought would be super cool to come into one of these games, and then we got to see her in action, in play, doing, I think, some really cool stuff. It does. I think people were talking about it in chat already, that it looks like there might be some changes to how some of her kit worked. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I can't wait to
They
get more
definitely
details.
watched FTM and saw that Aurora was the highest pick, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna put her in this video. Definitely what happened.
Sure.
I don't know who was playing Howitzer too, but that Howitzer was badass. Like
Dude, yeah.
the way he
Howitzer
cut off
ult
the
was
escape
sick.
with the ult. But I mean, the person wasn't going to make it there anyway because FaZe pulled him back. But still, that was a great play. And then
I
going
really
stasis.
love that howitzer ult as well. That the fact that he can place it and he comes down and it just rains down. It's very much like old howitzer ult from Paragon. And that ult was always fun. But I think this looks way better than his ever did in old Paragon.
Yeah. That seems to be a trend with Overprime, is they definitely improve the visuals on a lot of this stuff.
And apparently, Ranger said this video is 2 months old. So this is from 2 months ago, this footage. So I'm sure there's been drastic improvements since then as well.
Yeah. Pretty crazy stuff. let's see some other stuff that Overprime announced. They have a new contest. If you can post a video of the name change, they provided the video. You get the video, you put your own song into it, and then you post it with the hashtags. Paragon is back. Paragon, the Overprime on YouTube, TikTok, Douyin or Bilibili, and then you post that into their Discord, and you can win like something from them. I think like $10 in-game currency,
yep.
$10 in-game currency, something like that. Yeah. So that's cool. That's again, they're leveraging their own community to market for them, which is just brilliant. I'm sure. Yeah, you're giving people like $10 off in-game currency, but that's that's way cheaper than like hiring like a marketing firm to do a bunch of this stuff for you. So again, good on them. They also have a new loading screen, which looked really good. And then they have the ranked icons. We talked about this, that ranked would be with early access. These ranked icons use the old Paragon logo and just build up from that. I'm sure that'll come across the screen as it scrolls through. So I think that's awesome. I think it's really cool that they're going to have ranked right off the rip. I'm a little concerned about it because I think you have to have a lot more people and players for ranked to be truly successful. So it's going to kind of depend on how many people actually play Paragon, the Overprime, if this ranked mode is successful. Yeah. Any thoughts?
I think the ranked symbols themselves look awesome. Like they're clear, they're distinct. The differences are valuable. I'm excited for them, to be honest. I think they look really, really, really neat. It's a cool way to pay homage to the game. And I know that Jelly was getting some flack for some people about the nostalgia factor on Twitter. And to me personally, I didn't ever feel like Overprime was like leaning away from being associated with Paragon. They talk about being, old Paragon fans, and they want to do this new version, justice and make it succeed. I mean, and even like in their, promos, they do things that old Paragon did to promote as well. And so I don't know. It seems weird to get grumpy at them for using nostalgia when they've been using nostalgia. They just now have the name to also play with. I don't know.
Well, and every one of these games is banking on your nostalgia, right? To blame Overprime because they have the name Paragon now for nostalgia baiting is just an overreach, right? Like it's just these games, they're absolutely banking on your nostalgia for you to get in the door. It's just one of those things, right? And how you view that nostalgia is which game you may prefer, right? You may prefer the faster paced Overprime version that they have. You may prefer the predecessor version. You may prefer the Fault version, right? But they're all banking on your nostalgia regardless.
One interesting comment was from Swiftix saying that he didn't think that we would like this name change since Overprime has constantly distinguished themselves as being very different from Paragon, and I still like that they distinguish themselves by making plenty of changes. So it's not just a remake of Paragon; it's their own game. I probably would have had a different opinion on this before Overwatch 2 came out. Because when Overwatch 2 came out, I'm like, this isn't a sequel. This is just the same fucking game. So I think there's a difference between a successor and a sequel. And I think Overprime is far more of a sequel to these games, whereas Predecessor is a successor to the game to Paragon. Who should have the rights to the name? I don't know. Apparently, nobody bought the rights, so Predecessor. I think it would be a dumb move, but Predecessor could, approach Epic and also get the rights to Paragon. Then we'd have two games named Paragon, probably. I don't know.
And so I know that I think it was Rangers said that they did not purchase the rights for Paragon, the name or the logo. They just asked and we're giving it to them.
Right.
I wonder if there's still an agreement there that the other games can't go back and ask for that, or what. Even though it was not transactional, I'm very curious to see if there was some kind of rules behind it. And I'm sure there were to an extent. But you touched on an important thing there, Mangoose, of people thinking that we were going to be upset about this change and them going away from their distinctions from the other games. And I think, honestly, for me, this announcement of the name change makes me view those previous changes differently. Right? They didn't just go back to the Paragon names just because they could go back to the Paragon names. They went back to the Paragon names because they're changing their name to Paragon.
Right.
Which is a whole different way to view it than just a random name change a couple months ago. And I think with that now in mind, it makes those situations very different in terms of my reaction to why they made those changes. And I think it's good that they made those changes with this now name change coming through.
I'm also in agreement with a lot of people. I think they should drop the from the name. I think it should just be Paragon Overprime, not Paragon the Overprime. That's just a matter of personal opinion, though. I think a lot of people kind of agree with that, though. Guys, in the comments, if you have any hot takes, any questions about any of this Overprime business that's going on, let us know now. I'm just going to quickly go over what was changed in the Trello. So in the Trello for this week was minions spawn animation improvements, custom game improvements and bug fixes, matchmaking system improvements, jungle monster skill improvements, prime guardian summoning system improvements. So it's all improvements. It's nothing new. It's all polish on the game that's already there. So again, there's nothing really new or meaty here, but just the fact that it's all just polish is just a really good sign that this game is pretty decently ready.
Mm-hmm. So something else I actually want to touch on real quick is originally on Steam, the last closed beta test was a different title on Steam that we got access to, the beta test version of Overprime. That title has actually been updated from its Overprime beta test title to Paragon the Overprime final test, which we don't know if that means they're going to do one more test before they go full release or if that's an internal thing. I know that that's the title they use to do their testing internally because I watched the Steam the database on it, and the players tick up whenever they're online and theoretically doing testing. But it's like a game's worth of people or maybe a couple games. So I know that's where they do their testing. So maybe it's the final test for the internals, and they're still going to release anyway. But it was a change that was noticed, so that I'm very curious to see what happens with.
And Sarajog knows all this stuff. He can't say it.
Yeah,
I do know.
We're not going to pressure him, at least live. We were pressuring him before the show just to give him a hard time, but no, he's not giving away any secrets or hints or anything like that.
Elijah Hawkins says, with the announcement of the name change, does that give any insight into how close or far we are from early access? I don't think the name change is indicative at all of how close we are to release of the game. We do know it's still going to be sometime this year. We just don't know when about this year. I do know that that competition that they're doing ends in December, like the first week of December. So maybe I would think after that. But there's a big Korean gaming conference going on, and a lot of people, I forget what it's called, but a lot of people are saying that maybe they'll announce it there. Sarajog, do you know what that conference is?
No, I don't know about the conference.
Okay. I'd have to look back in.
So the other thing with that announcement is that announcement ending in early December doesn't necessarily mean that it has to end before early access comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Because they could easily have the game be live and still be having people spread the word like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And once you play it, then they can be like, oh, hey, did you get you the free $10 for putting this on TikTok? And no, how do I do that? And then bam, like it's just a great way to continue that marketing even after the initial release of the game.
Sure.
And it's free advertisement for them because
Exactly.
like they don't pay you $10. It's not like they pay actually. They're just like giving you some free skins kind of.
Yep.
And
I bet
G-Star 2022 is the name of the conference.
There you go. I would bet you that $10 is just enough for one skin, but we'll have leftover currency. So you'll need to.
That'll make me mad.
It'll be that age-old video game manipulation.
Why do you always speak these evils into existence, Johnny? I feel like every time we talk about like monetization or whatever, he comes in with like the thing that will drive us the most nuts. I'm tilted already.
They already got loot boxes, so I can't even theorize that one.
I know.
I'm going to tell you guys something right now. Jelly figured all this out weeks before anybody actually knew. Like Jelly in his super sleuth ways was like, I think they changed their game name to Paragon. I'm like, what? That's crazy.
Oh yeah, no. 2 weeks ago, I sent a message at like 1:30 in the morning to these guys, being like, I just found this. They changed their name to Paragon in the files somewhere, right? And we were kind of like memeing on it the next day, and then like the Discord change announcement went out and was like, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
This is suspiciously
The tinfoil hat got bigger and bigger. It was like, yeah, it was really funny. That was quite the experience. And of course, we just couldn't help ourselves. We ran with every idea that we came up with. But we also didn't want to be part of releasing anything that wouldn't actually prove to be true because we're professionals. Around here on FTM.
So I do want to apologize to Stunt on this show actually, because Stunt was messaging me about it, talking like, "Oh, did you hear about this?" And I'm like, "No, what happened?"
Let's see. SearchBin says, which one has been building the lore behind the characters, and does lore do anything for y'all, or does it not matter? Overprime is the only one that has done any kind of lore. Like I said, I did a whole lore video for them, but like I said, that video, it's not like Brandon Sanderson level of world building, but it doesn't have to be. It's for a video game, so it's not it's not lore that's gonna turn your head or anything, but it's there, and it's a lot meatier than Paragon ever had. So they do have some lore, and it's not going to change with the name change. So cool stuff there.
I think the lore will be, if important, for the Netflix series they want planned. I didn't hear anything in that regard in a long time, so no idea where they're at there, honestly. Because I know they initially changed the names because they wanted to make a series and they didn't want to have the Paragon names in there for, marketing reasons or whatever. License
Can you imagine
problems.
being a Paragon fan that still, whenever this Netflix series does come out, it hasn't heard that the game is back in any way, shape, or form, any of the successors, anything. Just perusing Netflix one day and Paragon, you're like, what the hell?
It's like Sevarog's on the cover and shit. You're like, is that motherfucking Sevarog?
Yeah. And you know it's gonna happen. You know it's gonna happen too. That's the crazy part. Can't wait.
Yeah, definitely gonna be interesting.
Well, do you guys got anything else before we let Sarajog go and move on to Predecessor?
No, I mean, unless he has something he wants to specifically talk about, you know what I mean? Like,
Sarajog, any fun trips coming up? Are you taking any fun vacation?
I didn't get the privilege to be invited over there yet. I'm doing this from home. Sorry, guys. Nothing fancy.
Sarajog, you might be able to answer this one, though. Is there a controller support in early access? Do you know that I can't remember this one, if Overprime had controller support or not.
I don't think, except for the Steam built-in controller support.
Okay.
There was some way to do it over Steam, as far as I remember, but I play with keyboard and mouse, so I don't really know about the controller part, honestly, since it didn't affect me.
We all know how Viking feels about console people and them bringing their controllers over to the PC. So,
60 Wavy asks, why did they change my girl Shibby's face? They wanted her to look more Korean. And with them being a Korean company, I see no problem with that. But that's exactly the reason. Her and Kwang, they are.
Kwang.
That's why they made those changes. I think she looks really good, especially just her base skin. She's got the fuck, I forget what the name of that traditional Korean dress is, but hanbok.
Speaking of actually skins, the thing I loved about this gameplay as well is there were skins present throughout it.
Yeah, that
it
Grux
was not
skin.
base models. Yeah, the Grux skin with the like cool like magma whatever weirdness that was super cool. Just in general, I think the skins being showcased in this are a cool idea to show that it's not just the core.
You saw the fish again on live, dude. It's so funny. She gets turned into a fucking fish. It's like that angler fish too, I think, right?
Yeah,
Is that what that?
Yeah.
It's like it's so.
It reminds
funny,
me of like a modified version of the old River Buff.
That's really really funny.
Windu is asking about early access and whether or not it'll be paid or if it's been confirmed to be free. It has been confirmed in their Discord that it will be free to play on early access release.
But
unlike some games we know,
I imagine that will come with a lot of monetization, though. I'm like skins,
100%,
all kinds of stuff.
We know,
and we will bitch and moan about it once we know exactly what it looks like.
Yeah,
probably
that we will.
Because it probably will not be one that I'm excited to see, but we'll see.
Yeah,
I'm actually hopeful that maybe they got enough flack or saw how much flack other companies and games have gotten that they maybe tone it back and they come up with a different way to do it. I'm not. That's a wishful thinking, but
One last thing I wanted to bring up too is in their, so they did like a poster, a background poster, background image, had a bunch of the Paragon heroes. Gadget looked fan-fucking-tastic in that poster. Like, they took her 1930s football helmet on her, off of her, gave her like a Tracer-style haircut, and gave her like a fucking bikini top instead of the tube top. She looked fucking amazing. Like, just, like, I was nice to see somebody doing something nice for Gadget. Yeah, I think Gadget was a little underappreciated.
I think another thing with that as well is that on that poster, Gadget is there, but is not in the game yet that we've seen, and Grim is there, who is not in the game yet that we've seen.
Yeah. We've seen Gadget a little bit in one of their gameplay trailers, because if you remember, her basic attack was an actual arc of lightning.
Oh, you're right.
Connected to her target. That was really cool looking.
You're right. But no Grim.
No Grim yet. No Grim. Maybe he will also have an arc of lightning. All right, Sarajog, do you have anything final for us before we move on to talking about some of these other games and let you go? Let you get the CPs?
No, I think for now that's all I can share with you guys, unfortunately.
Well,
it's
our
really
DMs are
rough
always
to
open,
know
Sarajog.
stuff. What?
Our
Sorry,
DMs are always open. You can send us messages that you want to tell us secrets all day long.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the offer. I really do.
I mean,
But
if it's just weighing so heavy on you, you shouldn't have to
course.
carry that burden
Yeah.
on your own,
yeah, I'll discuss it with the other mods, and then once I'll made an agreement with them, maybe I'll share something with you. But I wouldn't get your hopes up too much there.
Too late. Hopes are up. I'm ready.
Sarajog does stream. He does play all of these games. Like, he's coming from a place of he understands Fault, Predecessor, and Overprime. So check out Sarajog's streams when you get a chance. But I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. It was good to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarajog.
Thank you for asking me to be on here. There was a lot of people that wanted to be on this week. I'll tell you that right goddamn now. But Sarajog, he reserved his seat a lot quicker than they did.
Months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I would love to stay longer, but as we already discussed, it's like midnight, and I should get up tomorrow for work. So I don't want to drag this out too long.
No problem.
It's gonna be a rough day otherwise. Mondays are always rough, and with less sleep, they're even rougher.
Big true.
Gotcha, man. All right, well, we appreciate you coming. You go ahead and peace out whenever you want to, and I'll switch up the scene.
Yep. So
Later, dude.
Bye.
Bye. Love you. All right. Let's get in now to Ethereal.
Ethereal.
We're gonna wait. We're gonna save our predecessor for last because that's going to lead into the topic of discussion anyway. So Ethereal this week released a new skin for my girl Malaya, and it's the skin I asked for a long time ago. She's got the Chinese Ki Pao, and it is a badass looking skin. We don't see the 3D render of it yet, but I also put the 3D rendered cyberpunk skin in the scroll so people could see that.
Here it is.
So Jelly, what can you tell us about this Malaya? You're a Malaya main.
Dude, I am. I didn't expect to be, but I love Malaya so much. It's ridiculous. But no, the skin, so back, I mean, it's been 2-3 years now since the skin was shown for the first time. And it was in a contest for Malaya skins to which skin did you want basically to see on Malaya. And it was the Cyberpunk skin and the Empress Malaya skin. And the Cyberpunk skin won out in the end. But basically they decided after that like the Empress skin is way too good to just let go after that. So decided absolutely we have to make that a skin. I can tell you the skin in game looks incredible. So it's
so it is in game and everything now?
It is. It's in render. It's already been rendered out the whole 9 yards. It's designed, modeled the whole 9. So this incredible skin.
That took me
did you
by
model
surprise.
it using the suit that you have at your? No,
Ew.
If I said yes, that would give Mangoose a whole bunch of mixed feelings.
Oh shit. Knock on wood. Yeah, I was amazed during the first the first open test that you guys had, or actually it wasn't open, but the first test that you guys had for Ethereal where the community could play. I was amazed that the Cyberpunk skin was already in. Like it was in there for that test. That kind of blew me away that you guys already had skins in at this point in development, which is very early.
Yeah, I think right now, actually, I'm not going to give a number because I don't know exactly off the top of my head. We have a bunch of skins that are in the game already, and it's we're excited as more and more get added and all that kind of stuff. Has Ethereal provided a ballpark time frame for EA or no? We have not. We are currently planning on having a test sometime this year, but I'm not going to give any specific dates on any of that kind of stuff because that's still in flux. There's definitely a plan to get some kind of open test out to the community this year for sure.
Right on. That's good to hear. So that's like, that's 3 months, right?
I'm aware.
Okay.
Trust me, I'm counting down on the rest of these games, so I know exactly what that clock looks like.
Okay. Just making sure. All right. Do you guys have anything else for Ethereal? You want to move on?
I think we're good.
I mean, I'll just say I think the skin. I mean, she's already like a really, really cool looking character, and I liked the cyberpunk skin a lot. This one, I didn't know this one existed. So I do. I kind of also agree that we need the behind shot, just to really get the full understanding of
We'll get Mangoose out there putting her behind shot in everything like he does with Aurora right now.
Oh, goddamn right I do. I love that sweet, sweet side cheek. I've been called out for that a lot lately. And I was like, why are you guys just now noticing that I put her ass in everything I can? Like, I've been doing that for a while. Yeah.
I just want to say that I think it's cool that despite there being a lot of development that needs to be worked on outside of just the skins and stuff like that, I would imagine that for the artists being able to work on something skins and concept designs and stuff like that, it kind of breaks things up, makes the office a little bit more fun when you can spend a little bit of your time doing something that's a little bit different. Because I would imagine, and I could be wrong, but the grind in these types of games can probably start to feel overwhelming. And I think a lot of people in the dev team wear a multitude of hats and work on lots of different parts of projects. So being able to change things up and do something that I would imagine is a lot of fun, which is working on skin art, is pretty cool. So I'm excited to see the fruits of their labor, and obviously can't wait to see what it looks like in game.
Yeah, and I mean, so actually, I want to touch on that again real quick. I've been seeing comments on this post in specific, which is weird that it hasn't been on other skin posts that we've done. But
yeah,
for this post, a lot of people have been saying why aren't you just working on the game, right? Why are you posting about skins? Why are you talking about skins? Why aren't you just working on the game? And we are absolutely doing both things at the same time. I can assure you, skins is not taking away from development of the game, right? The skin system already exists, like Mangoose was saying before. So adding new skins is a matter of getting materials and a 3D model, and then we can basically plug and play from there.
Yeah, they're not taking programmers away from the game to work on skins. That's not how that works.
That's not happening. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that it is progressing the game as well as having skins in there as well.
It's almost like they missed the whole video that you did last week with all the map updates and changes that were being done. Like, the whole map looks wildly different than just 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy.
Pay attention before you critique.
Windu is funny. Jelly, someone asked, Pred, Overprime, and Ethereal playable at the same time. I'm calling it. Jelly won't allow that. He will schedule test weekend to be separate. After the 2 times that we've announced a test weekend and somebody else has 2, trust me when I tell you, I will be livid if a 3rd time happens.
Oh, that's how we can know when these games will release. Is Jelly schedules
100%. I'll announce a date and guaranteed. Guaranteed.
All right, you guys ready to move on to Pred?
Let's do.
All right, let's get into Predecessor. Not a lot coming out of Predecessor this week. The main thing that they announced, officially announced, was that they're going to have Asian servers in early access, which doesn't sound like a huge announcement, but that's pretty big. I was thinking about this, especially in conjunction with the Overprime announcement. Overprime and Predecessor both had similar numbers, but Predecessor's numbers were almost entirely from the Western audience because they didn't have Asian servers. Overprime's certain numbers were almost primarily the Eastern audience. So we know that double their numbers. What are you laughing at? There's the numbers right now. We know they have double their numbers. They got these numbers. If Pred adds Asian servers, boop, they could make those numbers twice as big. But
that's how the math works, Mangoose.
Yeah, that's exactly how 100%. It works. But Overprime could do the same thing, like with their announcement of changing the name, they can grab a lot more of that Western audience. So I think we're going to see both games growing quite a bit from these decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, didn't Pred also say that they were going to have a West Coast NA server also in that announcement, which I think during the test it was just East Coast. It didn't have a West Coast. So that's also pretty big. Yeah. So I think that's also pretty big. The main thing in that same theme was that the amount of South American people that were really, really upset that they're not getting a server. Because I know that that's a pretty big player pool. And I know that they're obviously wanting to play these games. So it was interesting to see that was kind of missing, given how large of a player base is waiting to be able to access.
I mean, even for Ethereal, right? Ethereal definitely has a smaller community than Predecessor or Overprime, but I get messages constantly from the South American audience talking about like how popular Ethereal is, how they talk about it with a lot of people, that they really want a server down there. Like, so it's crazy. Yeah, I completely agree. I think they should absolutely be looking toward adding a server down there for that group.
Not low X, 0 plus 0 equals bigger 0. That's
yeah. I was confused too as you were going through it. I was like, okay, so they have 0 player base, and then I was like, wait, is he making binoculars?
It didn't make any sense.
And looking for the player base? I was very confused until you went like this, and I'm like, okay,
he's just getting senile in his old age, you know.
It's just a mangoose analogy.
You guys are used charts. What do you call them where they overlap?
A pie chart?
A Venn diagram?
Venn diagram.
Venn diagram. There you go. Not a pie chart. Venn diagram. Yeah. Sheesh.
Amazing Venn diagram.
People are going to think that I'm trying to do cult symbols and stuff.
You are 100%.
Yeah. You're joining the Predecessor cult.
And so the bigger Predecessor news that came out on the show last week, right at the end, was that they confirmed they are doing paid early access.
Yep.
Which caught all three of us by surprise of like, you didn't just say that, did you? Like, sure enough, they paid early access. They didn't make a formal announcement, but Mangoose made a video, or Mangoose made a post. It was on last week's FTM. They confirmed it in their Discord. Like, it surprised me that that's the way it was just kind of put out into the world a little bit. Because they've been so cagey about whether or not it's going to be paid early access in the past.
And then with that as well, before I said anything, like the content creator in me was like, I need to make a video that about Predecessor going paid or, you know, immediately. But the human being in me was like, I've been friends with Ruba for a long fucking time. I'm not going to throw him under the bus by treating this like a formal announcement. So I talked to Ruba in DMs after the show. I was like, hey man, did you mean to say that? And he's like, and he doubled down once again. He's like, you know, it's EA. Everybody knows that EA is going to be paid. Like, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by this. So I was like, all right. So I met in the middle. If you guys have known me for a while, you know that the human being side of me wins out over the content creator side most of the time. But this time, I met in the middle a little bit and did that post asking what people felt about this. And I think it really did take a lot of people by surprise. I'm not sure why everybody assumed that Pred Early Access would be free. We've said it on this show quite a few times that we assumed that it would be paid.
Yeah. And I think part of it's because they've been so cagey about it, right? Like and there were a lot of comments on your post or your poll, Mangoose, as well. And I even made mention it in the poll of like, I don't necessarily mind that it's paid early access, right? We were assuming it was going to be there. I would not by any means say that all early access games are paid. I would not make that generalization, but we assumed it was going to be, but they were so cagey about it.
Yeah.
Like on Reddit posts, they were in comments, is it going to be paid or is it going to be free? It'll be early access. That's not an answer, right? Like, and so to one, reveal it that way, and then two, just kind of be like, well, why did you expect any different? Then why haven't you been that clear this whole time? Right? Like they're putting it on us that it's our fault that we expected differently. And I don't like that at all. Right? Like that to me really is a really feeling, but it is because he's saying like, what early access game isn't paid, right? Kind of a like, are you dumb? Why don't you realize that early access is going to be paid? And they're being cagey about it, right? They're setting it up to be different than the normal. And then they just tell us very nonchalant that, oh yeah, it is normal. Why did you expect differently? That's kind of shady to me. Like that just does not rub me the right way. And it frankly reminds me of a lot of what Fault does. Like, well, why did you expect differently?
Mm.
Because you were weird about it. That's why I expected differently. If you just came out about it and said it's going to be paid early access, everyone would go, okay, right? Like,
Could be weird.
it doesn't make sense to be that way about it.
Like, I think too, another reason people expected it to be, a free early access is because like you had like people like Another Notch and Nabori that just flamed the dog shit out of Fault for having a paid early access and saying that it was like a cash grab scam and all this stuff. And then like Predecessor hired Nabori to be their community manager. So I think the expectation is, well, this guy that they hired to be their community manager, he obviously hates a paid EA model. So maybe, so Predecessor will probably not be paid EA. So maybe people made that connection there and assumed then that it would be, a free early access. I don't know. I'm going to switch the screen over to what people's thoughts and feelings were on this.
While you do that, Elijah asked in the chat, I'm just going to read through it. If Pred and OP drop at the same time and Pred is paid, OP is free to play, does that impact the race?
I think it absolutely does.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
The other thing, actually, so a comment just reminded me, Stunned. I vaguely remember Pred's description on Epic or Steam said free to play MOBA. Now it's changed. Their website still says free to play MOBA.
Oh, really?
Yep. And again, a further reason why your community expects differently. You're actively putting it out there that you're saying free to play on your website and your descriptions in the games on Epic and Steam, and then you're acting surprised that we thought that might be true.
Which is another thing that people said about Fault. Fault kept saying that they would be free to play on full release, but they would have a paid early access, and people criticized them for that. It's like, well, don't say you're going to be free to play if you're not actually free to play. I think that's kind of what they're doing there. I don't know. It's crazy. I think, like Up Suicidal just said, I think that they kind of need to make it a paid early access. They need to prove to all these investors that this game can make money. Like they're going to. They didn't get that money for free. They need to pay people back. They're going to need to make money off of this game. So like most of the community doesn't have a problem with them being a paid early access. It just kind of snuck up on us. Kind of came as a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, with the a lot of people loved it. 22% loved it. They're fine. They're 100% fine with it. They're like, take my money, make it great. 18% just like it. Vast majority, I wouldn't say vast majority, but a majority just don't care. And with the don't cares, most of them are like, let me see how much it costs first, and then I'll give you my opinion. That's what most of the don't cares were. Then 12% disliked, and then 17% just flat out hated it. So, the community, it wasn't a bad reaction to this. I think they could have announced this just fine to the community themselves, and it would have been perfectly okay.
I mean, I know for me, I was one of the don't cares. But I also sent in the chat that I looked at the don't cares more of like, I don't really like it, but I'll buy it if it's the right price. And I would imagine that a good majority of the people in the don't care, dislike, and hate are maybe in that same thing. They might hate it, but it's not necessarily going to stop them from buying it if it comes out. And so that would be an interesting question, is like how many people are just not going to actively participate because it's a purchased early access, or are enough, people excited about it that if it doesn't, if it's not greedy on the pricing, they'll do it. And I was trying to figure out what that number would be for me, because there have been early access games that I've paid a decent amount of money for, like, $40, and I was really disappointed. Other times I'm like, I paid $40 and this, I felt like it was a steal. So I'm not sure, because I didn't play Predecessor. Do you guys have an opinion? And I'd obviously be curious what chat would look like, as far as like, if there's a price point, what that price point is that makes you hate it more or like it more.
I think it needs to be less than Fault, and they certainly. I think where Fault fucked up, where I got pissed off, was when they had a season pass on top of the paid early access, and then the base model early access didn't get you many heroes at all. And it was, I don't know, Fault. Like, I could see why somebody would say that Fault's paid EA is different than Predecessor's paid EA, because they're saying that with Predecessor you're getting a better product. And then we've yet to see what they're going to cost. I will say Fault That was 2 years ago, and they have zero investors. Say what you will about Fault. Strange Matter has been running those servers on a Paragon Remake for 2 years now, 24/7, on a shoestring fucking budget.
Yep.
Their developers are getting paid hardly anything just so that people will have a Paragonish game to play. So, fucking salute to Strange Matter. We don't
100%.
credit them
Absolutely.
enough. Just amazing from them. But they needed that early access money to fund their game at all. And I think Pred's going to need that early access money to pay the investors back that they've already used to fund their game. So that's the big difference there.
We talked about it earlier in the week, and I talked about it with some of you in chat as well, is that this could be also the first time we're seeing that investor backing play a role in a decision that Pred is making. And that can go both ways. That could be a good thing that, yes, they're getting it out of the way with the paid early access, but then from there, the monetization isn't super sleazy. It isn't anything like that. Or it could go the other way in that it's paid early access and then super sleazy monetization on top of it, which we see from full release titles today anyway. So it's one of those things. I think in terms of price point, I think for me as part of the show and part of just a creator in general, Paragon fan, I don't think there's a realistic price point that would turn me away, that I wouldn't just buy it. Be unhappy about it, certainly, but I don't think there's a realistic price point that would turn me away. I do fully expect we're going to see 3 tiers of price points. We're going to see the Paragon release system of $20, $60, and $100. I would bet that we're going to see something similar to that come from Predecessor in terms of an early access, paid early access.
And to answer a question that was asked a lot earlier, I highly, highly doubt that all the heroes will just be free and playable like it was a Paragon. You're definitely going to have to unlock them some with in-game currency or by paying for it or something.
And I could see them being all free in Overprime, which has a more, lack of a better way to put it, sleazy monetization scheme with the loot box.
Yeah, they kind of do, yeah.
Right? So I could definitely see all heroes are free, but skins are loot boxes. Take your pick, right? Like it's, we don't know that for certain. That's just speculation, but I could see it going that route. And I think for Predecessor, that is also a big thing. We have no idea what their monetization looks like at all. But they showed a single or maybe 2 skins, the Sarajog skin and the Murdoch skin 2 or 3 years ago. And that is the most we've seen of a monetization idea from them. And so the further we get without that information, it almost makes me nervous that I'm like, there's a bombshell waiting around the corner of this monetization. That, like, why wouldn't you talk about it earlier, right? And I just talked about people giving me crap on Ethereal for talking about skins, but still, right? Like, I think it's going to be interesting to see what their monetization looks like from the drop of early access.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, if it's more than $40, I actually might hesitate to purchase until I know for sure what all the other stuff entails. Like, because there is something to be said about that, at least for maybe older guys like me. Maybe the Zoomers won't care, but like for me, I'm like, dude, I don't want to buy a game, then not have access to the champions I want to play, and then also be, getting bombarded with, hey, you got to buy skins or you got to, progress through this, battle pass that you also had to pay $10 for or $20 for or whatever. If that's the case, it's going to put a monetary cost of my time, and I don't really want to do that, especially if OP comes out for free in early access and it's just as much fun to play as maybe Predecessor is. And I know, like, those super diehard fans, the guys who probably put love, like, and maybe even some that are in the don't cares, they will pay whatever price for it. They might be the guys buying it at the $100 tier because they just want to be part of that project and support it. But I think on the bigger scale, to be able to bring in casuals who are not diehards, that price point needs to be super ideal, and it needs to be very, very well marketed in order to really bring in new players, especially because if you're just relying on your current, Predecessor cult to, monetize with, you're going to end up with fault issues because that it's not sustainable. It's not enough to be able to make it work. That's my thoughts, at least.
I would be really surprised if the base version for early access was anything more than $20.
I think it's worth $20 too. I'm going to put that out there right now. What I'm playing in Predecessor, I think it's worth $40. Like, I think it's worth that price tag. But what I mean, that's my personal opinion, and with my finances, I don't know what everybody else has. You know what they got going on.
But I think if they go over $20, I think they're going to see a decline or a lesser return on investment from the player base rather than what they could if they were at the $20 price point. But like I said, I fully expect that we're going to see 3 tiers of pricing, something lower for entry, and then maybe a middle and high version of that. So.
Thanks, Windu. I appreciate you. I kind of agree with Christos. He said I wouldn't mind, or they said I shouldn't, assume genders here. I wouldn't mind buying a founders pack that includes all heroes and future heroes. That's something I think is fine. Like if the higher tier purchase comes with the battle pass unlocked already, or something along those lines. Yeah, being able to have access to all the heroes, that would make a lot more sense, and I'd probably actually be more okay with paying the $40 price tag. $20 is just to be able to get into the game and start playing it.
100%.
I think that's probably fine. I still think it's a little steep for a game that's not necessarily been proven, but I think I'm more okay with that. It's not gonna. I'm not gonna have to convince my wife to take out a second loan so I can buy Predecessor. You know what I mean?
I think we're definitely gonna see, if they decide to have lock heroes, I think we're going to see almost exactly what Paragon did, in that there was a hero pack. Depending on which pack you bought on early access, there was a hero pack, and that you got every hero on release. And then if you were on the highest tier, you got the first skin for that hero for free as well. And I had that pack. I loved every second of it. Never had to worry about getting a new character, never any of that kind of stuff, and always had a skin to use, which was super good. And that was at $100. So for something like that, I could see a higher price point being worth it. I hope it's not you get access to the game and you get a battle pass and maybe a couple heroes for $100. I'd rather see it be something more substantial than that.
Which again was Fault's problem. It was just all the heroes at that time that it launched at you got.
And the season pass was season 0. Yeah.
The season pass was still separate.
Yeah, I just mean you got the new heroes via the season pass. Yeah. Sorry. I forgot that's where it was included.
Yeah, Fault fucked up their paid EA pretty bad.
Yeah,
and they suffered for it. And we could let's hope history doesn't repeat itself with the Predecessor. This could very well be shooting themselves in the foot just as hard as Fault did.
Yep. And I think we want to have the faith that they're not going to, right? I would want to venture out that they're not dumb and that they saw, the failings of the Fault launch, and don't want to repeat them. But time will tell. Obviously, we'll find out here soon. CK, as far as we know, we have no idea if they're going to be able to get to console in early access. I'm going to throw it out there that it's probably not going to be on EA release, if EA at all, to get to consoles. And that applies to all of these games. It is extremely difficult to get a game that is in early access onto the consoles marketplace. Very, very, very difficult. So I wouldn't hold out hope for it yet. Maybe next year.
I'm going to read through some of the comments that were left on the post that I made about this. Levy V2, paid early access doesn't bother me too much as long as the price is reasonable. Maybe throw in a cool skin. Also depends on what the long-term monetary plans are. If they keep it paid without adding any loot boxes, then I'm even more fine with paid early access. But if they go free to play with more predatory loot boxes, then paid early access feels pretty bad, in my opinion. Yeah, if they had a paid early access and loot boxes, because we know with Overprime, they're talking about having a free early access, but we also know for a goddamn fact that they have loot boxes. So, yeesh.
Yep. Yeah, and that's my concern, is there's been no transparency on that front from the Predecessor team. And even with the muddying of the waters with paid early access or not from Predecessor, it makes me further worried for monetization.
Hopefully we'll find out more about their monetization plans going forward when they talk about their EA pricing. That would be nice to see. Another one from Nerd Vibes. While I don't personally care for it being a paid early access, I'm slightly disappointed at the lack of transparency from Omega. As someone who's rooted for this project to do well, I'm concerned that locking access to the game behind a paywall will affect its potential player base. Overprime can capitalize on this by making their EA free to play, since they both seem to be playing chicken with one another, but I highly doubt that it'll be the case. That being said, Predecessor's monetization had better be player friendly and not pred, in parentheses, Atori. Nice pun there.
I think both these comments really hit the nail on the head. Like that, there's a lot of wiggle room if done well, right? Like that's the big thing. It is funny, the puns that he was getting in there were top tier though. But I kind of agree more with the transparency thing. I think that's something that we've been kind of like screaming at all these devs to be more transparent with us, like give us more information so we can not just be guessing, at shadows. But again, they're obviously able to do whatever they want. I do worry, again, same concept that people are mentioning in chat, that, the competition between the two studios that are going to be releasing probably around the same time, one's free, one's not. What is that really going to do when we all talk about all the time how important it is that the player base for these games is massive? It needs to be huge, and it needs to be huge quick and sustainable for a long time in order to be considered a success. And putting $1 in front of that makes that a lot harder. It's going to be difficult for friends to convince other friends. Like I would have a hard time convincing people that aren't part of this group to play Predecessor if they have to pay $20 to $40 for it when they're already limited with time. They're not even sure they're going to like the game. All those red flags or road bumps start to come up in front. It makes it difficult to want to preach the value of the game when there's a price tag in front of it, versus like an Overprime, which, despite the predatory loot boxes, which we all hate, we do hate them, it's free.
Another comment here. This one cracked me up quite a bit, from Robert Jones. I can't do this Paragon early access cycle too many more times.
Yep. I mean,
People have already gone through with it with Vault.
Before times a Paragon game has entered the early access cycle.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we got Gokon. Personally, I used to be a lot more heated about playing a Paragon clone, but after years and delays, I don't think I would pay for an EA, especially if one of them, OP and Pred, became free. I'm definitely not mad, but I can't say I don't care as well. Lastly, I don't think name an EA game without paid access doesn't make much sense in this case, because you already got paid with millions of dollars worth of assets. What a great point right there.
Yep.
These games are cheaper to develop than most other games, because of like a majority of that budget that goes to making a game is making the assets to create the game, and they haven't had to pay that. They got all that for free from Epic.
And I wouldn't say that the assets are worth shit without the programming either.
Right.
Like that's it is important to notate. No, I think it's important to say that, because I don't want that cake to come back out.
I know,
Right?
100% it is. I think it's great that you're saying. I'm laughing because I remember how you and I were literally playing Fault when that was going through, and we're like, what? I think I stopped mid doing something in game and just was flabbergasted, and it just was I'm glad you said it. Just wasn't expecting you to say it again.
Absolutely. No, the Epic is putting out there that they put out millions of dollars worth of assets for a reason. One, it's a tax break for them, which is fantastic. But to say that they're worth nothing without your stuff there is just false. You absolutely benefited from the fact that these assets were made free and open to you, even if implementation was still something you had to do, right? Like that hands down, huge last line there from him talking about how they have already been paid with millions of dollars of free assets.
Yeah.
Not only that, but somewhat free marketing, because
Yep.
you're capitalizing on the nostalgia of a game that's already been around. You have an in-place player base.
You're saying they're capitalizing on nostalgia, Mangoose,
That's-
without the
my
Paragon
goodness.
name?
How
This fucking
dare
guy.
they?
This fucking guy. Was there one more? Okay. Byron Mordrapo. I don't really care as long as it's no more than $19.99. If it's more than that, I won't be pleased. So again, like I said, most people just seem to be concerned about the price more than that it's paid early access.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest, probably the biggest concern itself, and the reasoning for why they're doing it. Like, it just, I think with Fault, there was an argument that they could make that, hey, we're a single small studio with no other backers. We need the money to be able to develop the game that you guys have been asking for. We want to try and make the game the best that we can, despite all the things that they failed to do, right? That's on them. I feel like Predecessor doesn't have that same excuse to the community. Now, a good portion of the community is probably going to, forgive them for that regardless, but I don't think they have the same ground to stand on that Fault did. They're not in the same position that Fault was, Like Fault absolutely was funded by us, the players, by buying early access. The game made it this far in 2 years because of that early access purchase. Predecessors got the money to go regardless of early access money. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's a little bit, I don't know what the word is, but I think there's something to be said there that they maybe need to own up for. And it will be interesting to see how they, cross that bridge. Because it does feel a little stingy or greedy, maybe. Because it's for the...
They got to pay those investors back, though. I mean,
I think the big thing is honestly for how hard they've been pushing. Like, we got more money from investors, right? They put out multiple posts about it. They talk about it, right? And then they're saying, but we need your money still, right? And that's the disconnect, right? The first time they announced investors, that was a huge play that added some legitimacy to them. Fine. Past that, why do they keep pushing the fact that they're getting more money from investors, that they're closing more funding, that they're doing these things? Because I think that to me is where it rubs me the wrong way, is you're pushing so hard about like, we've gotten all this money, look at how great we are, but we need your money too, right? Like, and that just feels bad. Like it just, I understand from a business standpoint, but as a consumer, when you're rubbing it in our face that you keep getting this money and then you're asking me for mine, that feels bad.
Yep.
I think it's important to say too that there's been nothing official from Pred saying that it's going to be a paid early access. Like
that, what I would say that they've told us what early access isn't paid. They confirmed, like you were saying with Ruba earlier, if you want that to potentially change, since there has not been a formal announcement, you need to make your voice heard. You need to tell them that you're unhappy with it. You don't like that there's going to be paid EA. Yeah. And maybe that does something. Yeah. I get where you're coming from. The announcement hasn't been made, but they have told us that that's the plan, right? So before that announcement is made, now's the time to do something about it. If you really are unhappy about it.
And they've said it in their Discord too. Like when people have been asking about this, they've said, you don't have an early access without it being paid. Like that's the thing they keep saying. Like you don't expect in this day and age that early access is not paid. That's pretty much the only real confirmation they'll get. They dance around it quite a bit. They don't make anything official saying that it's paid or not paid, but about 95% certain that it's going to be a paid early access.
Yep. And I think that's part of it. Stop dancing around the question, right? Either make a formal announcement so you can stop dancing around the question, or just be willing to put your money where your mouth is and say, yes, as of right now, we are planning on having a paid early access. Even if it's not a full announcement, when people ask, say something about it. Because the more cagey you are, the more you dance around it, the worse it feels. Like, just be forward about it. It just feels odd whenever they're dancing around questions like that.
All right. That's about all I had for paid EA. You guys got anything else for paid EA?
I think
no, not really.
Yeah, not directly tied to paid EA, but I want to talk to Predecessor's community for a minute here.
Ooh.
In that, when the Overprime announcement went out, I was in the Predecessor Discord because I was curious to see what the reactions were to that announcement, and I was bouncing between all the Discords, and some statements were made that the Predecessor community doesn't want Paragon. That it doesn't matter that Overprime got the Paragon name because we didn't want Paragon. Okay. And it's like, that to me is just like, no, you do want Paragon. That's why you're here. If you didn't want Paragon, you would have moved on to another game. You wouldn't be following successor projects, right? They wouldn't be using your nostalgia for Paragon to bring you into a different game, right? So to say, and we've also said many times that Predecessor is the most similar to Paragon. So also to say you don't want Paragon, but you want Predecessor is also a bit of a weird double standard there. And I think it's just one of those things. It's okay to say you want Paragon. It's okay for the other companies to be successful or to make a cool announcement. It's okay for other things to happen it does not necessarily mean that someone's infringing on what you prefer, what you want. And I think it's just, I made this analogy to Mangoose and Viking of, it felt like it was a little kid who got their favorite toy taken away, right? That they were in there playing with their toy, it gets taken away from them, and they go, well, that was a dumb toy anyway, and like go pout and walk away. And it's just like, why? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's just unnecessary. You are allowed to be upset that somebody else did it and your game didn't, but there's no reason to like suddenly put off, well, we didn't want Paragon anyway, so whatever, dude. Like, it just is too much. Like, come on, guys.
We were talking about this today. The fans for each and every one of these games at some point have been cult-like. And it's always whenever one of them releases something major, like Overprime getting the rights to Paragon and the logo is a major change.
Yep.
So Predecessor fans are rabid and defending the shit out, like they're going they're going overboard, white knighting for Pred and fucking going Toxic Avenger on Overprime. But we've seen the same from Overprime fans too in the past. We've seen them just absolutely rabid going after anything Predecessor has done. We've seen core fans going absolutely rabid on anything Predecessor has done. When Fault was actually popular, but way back when it first got up and running, Fault fans were just, going
Popular.
off, and Predecessor fans were going after them. The fans for these games need to just fucking chill out. You don't have to put somebody else down to push yourself up. You need to understand that Overprime getting this name change is good for Predecessor. It's going to bring more recognition to all the projects as a whole.
And
I don't get the animosity.
I loved to see Ranger in the Overprime Discord saying, I hope we're not saying bad things about Predecessor.
Yeah.
That was absolutely massive.
Yep.
To have a core developer of your game saying, hey, that's unnecessary.
Yep.
Perfect. I think that is exactly what all of these need to be doing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think that's a great way to handle it. There's no reason to be putting these other games down, right? They're cool too, right? Like you're allowed to have two cool things exist at the same time. At the end of the day, one will prove cooler than the other, or better, or more stable, or whatever it's going to be, or maybe they both survive. It doesn't matter. Like, it's okay for them to have a change. You don't need to shit all over it because they did.
I agree 100%. Obviously, I think I've been saying this for a while. I think it's really, really weird when anyone gets like all up in arms over a dev studio. Like, they don't know you, bro. Like, you're not, they're not you. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not, I can somewhat understand Fault only because it's currently out. It's a game you can actually play. If you're really invested, like you put time, you put money into Fault and you want to see it succeed, you maybe have a little bit more skin in the game. That's fine. But the Overprime and Predecessor guys, like, if you're just going into other forums or you're talking shit in Twitter or doing whatever, it's just cringy. And it's just, you're basing yourself. Like, why? Like, none of these games are going to be better because you're going around talking shit about the other game. Like, just let the games speak for themselves. If they're good, people will play it. If they're dog shit, they're not going to get played. If they have predatory monetization, they might not get, be as successful as they should. As it is already, without all of this negativity surrounding, these games have a huge uphill battle to become successful. We've already seen it with Vault, that it's not just so much as putting out a Paragon-like game and immediately coming into success. It takes so much more, and it's going to take a lot for these studios, with all the money and backing that they already have, to be able to realistically compete in this market. And they might still fail. So just leave your negativity at home, man. Just don't you don't need to do that. Who cares? Relax.
And people in chat are even talking about Rangers, even in the Predecessor Discord. He talks in there all the time. And even after the announcement, I saw Ranger in there, right? And like, that's cool to see, right? That's cool to see. Yeah, like, even, and granted, like I said, Ethereal is not at the same level as the other games at the moment. But even when I go into these other Discords and I start typing messages, I either get recognized from here or I get recognized from Ethereal, right? And either way, I know that there are people that are like, whoa, Jetly's here. Like, that's a cool thing, even in the other places, because we can show support for these games. It doesn't need to be that your game has to be the best and all the others have to be put down. And I think we just need to get rid of that.
I will say Smokey has been really good in the past too, of just interacting really well with the other teams. I mean, their devs could do it. Why can't the fans do it? It's just that's such an indicator too. That is like such a if you see like one game's fans losing their fucking mind with toxicity, it means that one of the other games did something that's probably pretty goddamn important and successful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think Stunt's point here is perfect. People confuse creative criticism with being toxic, and they don't know the difference.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very true.
I agree with it 100%.
That's even when I was talking in the Predecessor Discord after the announcement, I was trying really hard not to just like be pouring fuel on the fire, right? Like I wanted to have a conversation with these people, right? And it's hard, right? But taking the extra 2 seconds can go a long way of helping promote your game and the community of your game without being toxic.
Do you know who's the most toxic?
You?
Well, by proxy, maybe. Console, man. The console kids.
I knew it was coming as soon as I said you. I was like, he's going to say something about console.
I have to bring it up because it was in the Predecessor announcement. When they put out their stuff about the servers and everything like that, there's like two parties. There was like the super fanboys, yes, this is the best news ever, and they're just jerking themselves off for this news. And then you had the console kids who were just like, how come you're not announcing stuff for console? It's a console game first. Like just it's the
Viking going off with console players again.
Hey, listen, console boys, like I get you want the game to come to console. Like I said this earlier in broadcast, and I say it almost every freaking week, dude. Going to early access is so hard on these platforms for console. It is so fucking difficult, man. Give the devs a break on your console win. Listen, it's not like it was when Paragon first came out. The gaming sphere has changed a lot. The place in which this game's success isn't just going to be coming from console. Will it come from console? Absolutely. At some point, but that's so far in the future. I don't know, man. PC is going to be the main focus, though. Just get it through your heads. Chill out. It's so weird.
I'm sorry. I love that I just watched Mangus read a very specific message in chat and then freak out for a moment.
Whoa, what did he?
Oh, that Sarajog looks weird.
Like, oh yeah.
Oh man, so good. Oh jeez.
And then, to kind of add to that, like another thing you see a lot too is people asking for the specific date of launch. Like, when is this game coming out? And you tell them soon, or you tell them this year, and they flip out like, why the fuck can we get like a date? Okay, if we're talking about overzealous fans. Core, Metabuff and Core had by far the most overzealous fans, and they pushed so fucking hard, and Metabuff put out a date. They put out a date for their first initial alpha. They missed that date, and they fucking
never
died.
showed back up.
And they died. You can't set a date that far out because there's unforeseen things can happen. COVID can happen. You know what I mean? Like, like nobody saw that shit coming. Like things happen. So you can't put out a date and then miss it, because that looks way worse than just not releasing the date until like a month out. You know what I mean?
100%.
CK, I'm not saying that I don't think the console is going to be an important addition to these games and having crossplay and all that stuff. We saw what it did for Fortnite. We saw what it did for all these games. Overwatch, like a lot of these games that are competitive games, especially competitive online games, having a healthy console presence is important. I'm not discounting that. I think it's just, maybe it's because in recent years, like this whole like idea of the PC master race has made the console kids feel like the like forgotten middle child or something like that in the gaming sphere, that like unless you have like, you know, a $5,000 streaming rig with a bunch of lights behind you and, you know, and a sound studio and the crazy fancy chairs and all that stuff, that you're not a real gamer. And so they're like on the extra defensive or something. I don't know. I'm not speaking about anyone in particular.
Yeah. No, clearly not. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fine. What I'll just say is that you're not real gamers and I am. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm here.
I don't know, man. I do agree that it is important that they come to console. I just don't think it's realistic to keep bombarding these devs with console when they're not even out on early access yet. And the likelihood that they go to early access on console is very slim to none. Like there's AAA studios that struggle to get their games in beta or early access onto these stores. So Yeah. Sorry.
And a cat tree. All right. I think that's about it for tonight. Unless you guys have anything else.
Thank you, Stunt. Money well spent, bud.
Stunt. Did you guys have any questions?
Stunt,
We're going to start wrapping it up. So if you guys have any questions in the chat, let us know right now.
Stunt, next time you need a PC to watch FTM, just let me know. You send me the $5,000 and I'll send you back something that'll work. I promise.
There you go.
I do want to touch on Fault very briefly, and I don't want it to be like a rant or anything. I just want to provide information about them that I've noticed. One thing is that it's been a month since over a month since their last patch, and there's not been basically any news. They did the Iggy and Scorch contest after that, but past that, there's not been any news out of them. Looking into the Steam API as well, they have not even updated their developer branch of the game in that same amount of time. So it's not like they're testing something in the background that we just haven't heard from. From what I can see with what's publicly available to me, there has been no movement on the game in the last month, which has me worried about what's going on. Like, it seems like there should be at least some communication of what's to come and not a month of almost silence.
Yeah, I just completely dropped them from FTM for the last 2 weeks because they just haven't had anything, and I didn't want to just sit here and talk shit about Fault for a half an hour. So. Sophisticated carrot. What's Fault? Everybody jumping
blame
in.
the jungler. That's what Fault is. It's always the jungler's fault.
Yeah.
I mean, I still kind of feel bad for Vault. I mean, I think that, you know, despite sometimes their best intentions and efforts, they just continue to stumble. I think what Mingu said earlier about Vault was probably one of the most poignant things to mention about them. Like, they've been around for 2+ years now, trying to give people a Paragon-like game to play. Not always successfully so. We're not discounting that, but it's there. You can right now, the servers are live. You can log in and play some of your favorite heroes that you missed from back in the day. And it's free to play, so you can just download it, whether that's on the Epic Store or on Steam. You might wait 10 to 15 minutes to get into a queue, but you can play against AI bots and all kinds of other stuff. It is a disappointment, I know, for a lot of people who put a lot of time and effort into Fault, but I don't know. Maybe they have something coming out soon. Maybe they are doing what Jelly Knees told them to do and wait until one of these other games do something, and then they're going to release a bunch of fucking content.
I said content. They're holding content to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Announcements and communication.
Viking doesn't like DC.
So
maybe
like
DC
don't
Comics?
say Cord. That's like saying Voldemort.
I don't like DC. DC Comics, like the DC universe. I hate DC.
There we go.
Okay, keep reading.
Oh, wait, what else? What am I looking for here? Is there something that is?
I don't know if you throw an I and a K in there.
Yeah, then you love it. Then you love DC. Nah, gotcha. All right. Well, that is about going to wrap it up for tonight. Then
There's a weird buzzing on my mic.
Yeah, there is again.
Oh, weird. Okay, sorry, guys. I
It
actually
went
love
away
consoles.
and then it came back, and
Weird.
then I don't know.
I actually love consoles. I have a console. I have all 3 consoles. So, but I think it's weird that the console guys get so up in arms. The console, what do you call them? The console cult. We have the Pred cult,
Cult
OP
of the
cult,
console.
cult of the consoles.
All right. But yeah, we're going to close it out for tonight. Viking, any final words? Anything to plug?
Oh goodness. I mean, it seems last week. We do the anime show on Thursdays. Super fun. You know, I don't always have the most to say on there, but it's really, really fun getting to talk about anime and learn about new anime. So if that's something that you guys are into, Main Goose hosts an anime podcast with me and a few other guys. So feel free to check that out. Follow me on Twitter, and you can sub to me here on YouTube if you'd like to. Same name, The Viking Jedi. Eventually, once these games are into early access, I do plan on streaming them with the boys. So, you know, if that sounds like something that you might enjoy, feel free to sub and come and hang out. I'd love to see you there. Might be scuffed Viking stream, but we'll be there anyway.
They all are.
Nah, it's fine.
Jellies?
Nothing basically similar to Viking of that. Once these games come out, I'm excited to stream them and play them more consistently. But I guess the only real thing I have to plug is go to the Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter for Ethereal. Go look at our recent post about the Empress Malaya skin. Give it a like, give it a comment, whatever those things are on all those places. It helps push us out there, but it's also just cool to see that people are seeing these posts, which is cool. What about you, Zamangoose?
Mangoose.
I guess I'll plug the anime stream again, Thursdays. This week we're going to be talking about Rising of the Shield Hero, what was good about it, what was bad about it, what could be improved about it. Just a whole discussion on one anime. We're going to try and narrow our focus a little bit instead of drifting so far like we've done in the past. But anyway, that is going to wrap it up for this week. Appreciate everybody coming out for the live stream. Appreciate you watching this if you're watching it in video format. But that is going to be the For the Minion crew signing off. You guys have a good one. And then I'll awkwardly wait while I find the scene for the outro. Mangoose! Special shout out to channel members: I, Bloodhunter, Blastoise King, Raven, Meow Mix for Ben, Clorox TV, Joshua Van Noctis, Stunt, Actual Dez, Soul Reaper, J-Man63, Levy, version 2, Dapper Dice, and Lionheart Official.